Hello and welcome to another Scots Whay podcast, and it's the third one that we've done with my brother Andy. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Ali.
And this time we've already looked at the 80s and 90s in terms of the music that we were listening to, and this time it is rather logically. Are we going to call it the naughties?
I think so.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, we're looking at the naughties. So let's kick off just by giving a bit of context. Where were you between 2000 and 2010?
Lordy. I was Millennium. I can tell you where I was in the Millennium. While the fireworks were going off, I was nursing my dog who had diarrhea in the garden. As the bombs were going off over Uddingston, I was nursing my dog, and he was not having a good time dealing with all the fireworks. But after that,
it went downhill.
I went all uphill. I moved up to Braidwood that year in April that year. So let's just say 2000 onwards was me starting to run the gallery and getting to grips with running a business and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I was. I'd moved up in April 2000. I moved up to Braidwood and started running the gallery. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to hear if some of the music you've picked was the soundtrack in the gallery, because I'm guessing a lot of your days were, managing to curate your own soundtrack.
Funnily enough, a lot of it was, Ali, but on this, not so much, because this is more what I was listening to personally rather than you have to play a kind of inoffensive version of things sometimes in the shop.
But yeah, there's some offensive music coming up. Great.
Well, no, not really. No, not really. But yeah.
This was my 30s, and it was also my uni years. So as a result, I kind of stopped going out. I didn't really go to any gigs for about a decade. And that's not quite true. I went to a few, but the music I was listening to was either listening at home or in work, because and I was still working in Cafe Gandolfi at the time, so I used to make mixtapes up for the weekends, which was always mixtapes. Still making mixtapes. Not that
actually, Cafe Gandolfi was a huge education to me as well, with the mixtapes that were in there. I.e. Lou Reed Transformer and sort of disco stuff and all that, which I had no access to, but working in there gave me a huge the summers that I did,
because it was very even-handed, as long as no one hated it, you could put all sorts of different stuff on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so we're going to talk again, just if people haven't seen these. It's 10 records that we were listening to in the noughties. Did you find it difficult to come up with 10?
Slightly. Scottish ones, yes, because we're dealing with the rule of them being Scottish. What was it? I was listening to all sorts of stuff, lots of film soundtracks and things like that, lots of Danny Elfman and lots of other things, and so it was kind of tricky for me to come up with Scottish. I was going to a lot of gigs locally, so those were smaller, folky kind of bands, which maybe didn't have so much material out, but I was really enjoying my music by 2000. I was going to a lot of gigs and doing the sound desk locally for a few bands, so that was where I was getting my enjoyment from. But I got there eventually, Ali. Yeah, what about you?
Let's kick off with your first choice. I'm looking forward to this.
Right, okay. First choice. My one of my favourite bands is Primal Scream.
Yes.
So I've got Exterminator for my first one, which is the 6th studio release. And when I got that, it was like, what is actually going on, here? Because they had gone from my favourite sort of leather trouser wearing Rickenbacker playing psychedelic to the more MC5 thing, and then they did Screamadelica, which I loved as well. And then suddenly here we are with Exterminator, which was as if they went, let's try and lose as many fans as possible, or let's try and make the most aggressive sounding record that we could possibly make. And for the track Accelerator alone, which they quite often started the live gigs with, it just was like they came out of the trap, you know. It was like, you know, it was astonishing to see live, and it was proper guitar music, which was good for me, but there was lots and lots and lots of electronics in there. Another track on that album was Shoot, Speed, Kill, Light, which was one of my favourites, again, as a live. It was a great live record. It was great to see them live at that point, which I did see them. I think you've seen them more than most people, and I've seen them a few times. And to see them live at that particular point where it was, Manny on the bass, and I think was your man Shields playing the guitar at that point?
I think he was, yeah.
I think he was, but it was just a wall of noise. I mean, and it was good noise, you know, it was really astonishingly, trouser flappingly fantastic.
I think it's interesting. I think if you look over the different types of records, there are a few bands that have gone from where they started and tried all these different. I suppose the Beatles are another band.
I was just about to say that, yeah. That's the only one I can think of, because you've got, when you go through Primal Scream's record, whether you like them or not.
Too.
Anyway,
sorry, you were going to say.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. But when you go through the thing, you think, wow, every time there's just an absolute curveball, and say, well, let's do this. And that, for me, that was an incredibly exciting record at the time.
Of course, the other person who did that perhaps more than anyone else is on your Jerkin.
Was I? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, no one else kind of went from, the Laughing Gnome to Tin Machine.
Absolutely. No. Well, well, that's a good example of reinvention, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and there's, I mean, you were saying there was certain stuff she couldn't play in the gallery, and I would imagine that externally.
That's one of them. Yeah.
Okay, my first one is Ball Boy, and it's a Club Anthems 2001, which is a collection of their first 3 EPs, and like it says, came out in 2001. Ball Boy are a fantastic band. They went on to make other great records, but these early songs are my favourites. And few records start off as well as it does with the first line of Donald in the Bushes with a Bag of Glue is, the first time that I saw you, you were lying in the bushes with a bag of glue, which is just poetry in my.
Absolutely.
They had lots. I'm going to another couple of tracks. Essential Wear for Trips into Space, and They'll Hang Flags from Cranes Upon My Wedding Day. You know, they went for these kind of weird, long titles. Definitely an indie band. One of these bands that was influenced by Arab Strap, without a doubt, singing in strong accents. Gordon McIntyre was the main songwriter and continues to be a fantastic songwriter. And they became one of the last bands that John Peel championed before he sadly passed away. He used to play them a lot on his show. And if it's good enough for John Peel, it's certainly good enough for me. Used to play the Ball Boy album a lot when it came out, and I still go back to it. It's my favourite of all their records, I think, definitely. Okay, you're number 2, Andy.
Number 2. Okay, it's The Boy with No Name by Travis.
Okay.
And it's their 5th studio album, and this came out, when did this come out? 2007. And at the time for me, again, Ali, sorry, I've not got these in chronological order.
That's all right. We'll stick to what we know best.
My life is chaotic as it is. So The Boy with No Name for me came out at a kind of, very personally for me, it was a kind of strange time for me, not to go on about me too much, but it was a very soothing record at the time. It was a very soft sounding record and very beautiful. I felt a very beautiful, soft, well produced record, and it was very like a balm to listen
Well,
to.
instead of, we're talking about Primal Scream cranking up the noise.
Absolutely, the
Brothers
opposite.
were particularly noisy to begin with, but they actually got gentler and gentler, it seemed to me.
Well, that album in particular, it just records like Closer and a track called Out in Space, which was just beautiful, spaced out kind of tunes. There was Selfish Gene, which was the kind of Lust for Life kind of thing. It started with the Lust for Life beat, and it was good as well. But no, for me, that was a very, very comforting record to listen to at the time. And it was.
It would be interesting to go back and listen to some of the Travis records, because I haven't done so for a while. And, they made some great albums, I think.
I think so. Yes. Yeah.
My second is a bit of a hero of mine, Bill Wells and the Bill Wells Trio. And this album is called Also in White, and it is one of my favourite albums of all time, never mind the Naughties. Bill Wells is a bit of a national treasure. He's worked with so many different people, such as Aidan Moffat. Everything's Getting Older won the very first Scottish Album of the Year award. He's worked with Isabel Campbell, Future Pilot, aka the National Jazz Trio of Scotland. He is originally a jazz man, but I think he found himself, I think he actually is, you could quote him as saying he found more kind of friendship, or at least more in common with the indie bands in Scotland. So you've got this kind of crossover, and you could say that he was the person that kind of helped jazz music and indie music in Scotland, and in Glasgow in particular, really kind of connect. And that's a relationship that really was working as well today as it ever has. There's a real mesh between those two kind of musical styles. This album has got two of my favourite bits of music ever on it. Presentation piece number 1, which is about 9 minutes long, and DADE, which finishes it off, and just beautiful.
I'm not aware of it, Ali. I'll have to look it up.
I'm sure you'll have heard some and not even realised that. I mean, he's
probably
worked with so many people. He's definitely worth checking out, Andy. You would just love his stuff. I'd just say a bit of a national musical treasure for me. And that was, just to go over it, that was Bill Wells Trio and Also in White, which came out again in 2001. There's a couple of years that really dominate for me. We'll come to that in a minute for some reason. But we're on to your third choice, Andy.
Well, when I was writing this out, I thought it's definitely is by Las Vegas, and I went for the one called Snowflake Fell, and it felt like a kiss, which is actually an EP, but it was kind of so closely followed. It followed so closely on the heels of the main album, and so I kind of think of it as one piece of work, and I'm not trying to shoehorn two things in at once, but I kind of am. But the Snowflake Fell one I loved because it has the Christmas connotation, which I love, and it did feel, when you put that record on, it does feel dark and cold, and I love that record. But also anyone who grew up listening to Jesus and Mary Chain or early Primal Scream or stuff like that, they're going to like this kind of, or Velvet Underground or anything like that. You've got the sparse drumming and the tambourines and so forth, and I really like the power of these songs. They're I thought it was a really powerful album. For me, it was quite an emotional album, even though some of the things I can't, I don't relate to personally, but I really liked that album.
I think Las Vegas were one of the bands I kind of missed out on, because they'd have been gigging regularly in Glasgow, and normally I'd have been out seeing them, and I kind of, as I said, much for going out in my 30s. And so it kind of passed me by a bit, although that EP you mentioned, I do like.
And I saw them support U2 on their was it a 360 tour or something like that. It was, and they played support. Yeah, they played support, which was nice to see. Yeah. So that's mine. Yeah.
My third one it's a bit of a trickster. So as I say, I was at uni for the decade, and one of the things I did there, it wasn't all reading books. I started up a Scottish film club, mainly for the people in the kind of Scotland department, but anyone could come along and often did. And every week or every fortnight, I think it was, maybe we put on different Scottish films. And one of the most divisive, and one I hadn't watched since the 80s, was The Wicker Man. And it's, if no one's seen the film, I'm sure you have, but it's a really weird horror. It's very odd. The most horrific piece takes place in full sunlight, you know, which is unusual for a horror movie. It plays a lot with things. It's an odd film, but I love it. I think it's a great film. Some people.
It's a great, fantastic.
Yeah. But I kind of fell in love with the soundtrack, and the soundtrack was reissued in 2002. I think maybe there was a special, it must have been an anniversary edition. I remember there was also Alan Brown, the journalist, wrote a book about the Wicker Man, which I read and reviewed at the time. But I just love this. I think it's a great bit of music. I think it was really influential on the Scottish folk music scene, because yes, it was folk music, but it was dark and twisted. You know, if you think of bands like Trembling Bells or Ali Roberts stuff, or you know, you could feel the kind of influence, I think, of this album. And I played this a lot, and I still play it a lot. It's got some really gorgeous bits of music on it. It's got some really weird, what's the word I'm looking for? Pastoral, is that the word I'm looking for? That kind of thing, written kind to the Maypole and all the old religions and stuff. But yeah,
almost pagan.
That's the word I was looking for, Andy. Pagan,
is that right? Okay, yeah.
Pagan ritual and all of that stuff.
It's interesting at that point in noughties, there was a bunch of albums came out. There was one called Folk is not a four-letter word, or Folk is a four-letter word, or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was also, and there was one called, oh gosh, there's a bunch of compilation albums that came out at that time, and they highlighted people like Ali Roberts, but also other folk bands from way back in the day. And I bought a bunch of those at that time. So that was, I was listening to the same kind of stuff at that time, yeah.
Yeah, I did as well. I started buying albums by June Tabor and the Wattersons family and Eliza McCarthy and lots of interesting folk music. It was a real boom time for folk music, which has continued up to now. And
Johnny Trunk's label came out with a bunch of stuff, which was good, a Trunk record. And that was, I'm trying to still think of the name of the other album, but it's not going to come to me. If it does, I'll shout it out. But
it did seem to me a time where this idea of, we like that, but maybe it's just us getting older, certainly me getting older, but, this idea that, well, this is what I like, and therefore this is what I don't like, had kind of fallen away, and it seemed to fall away across the board. It's just like, what's great music? Let us, let us enjoy it. And that's certainly the kind of resurgence of folk music really affected me. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah. When I first heard Ali Roberts play, I thought it was an old guy. I just assumed it was an old guy, from way back in the day. And amazed to meet this young guy, Anyway, so
we're on to number 4, Andy.
Number 4 is from 2001, a record by a band called the Rafaels. And the Rafaels were Marcus Hammond, who used to write songs for the Dixie Chicks and so forth. He was a songwriter in Nashville. He teamed up with Stuart Adamson, obviously from my beloved Big Country.
I knew the name.
Yeah, so the Rafaels toured that album, unfortunately. Well, they toured it between August the 14th when it came out, 2001. Obviously, what happened with Stuart when he died at the end of that year. But it's really a good record. I like it a lot. It was Stuart trying to do his Nashville thing and write as a partnership, and there's some fantastic stuff on it.
Yeah, I'd like to listen to that. I don't think I've ever heard it, but it makes sense because it did seem to me he was getting more into that side of music, wasn't he? The kind of
Yeah, he was going that way. I mean, there's some guitar lines and things that you'll recognise from Big Country B-sides and so forth that he's thrown in there, but his voice and Marcus's voice together were really nice. And sometimes the songwriting, depending on who was writing the songs, was interesting. But it's a really good record to get. And sorry. That's one to find if you can, or I'll give you a loan of it, Ali. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because it might not be that easy to find, I have to say.
No, I don't think nowadays. I keep looking on Discogs and things like that and go, God, I'm worth a fortune.
Well, it's funny you should say that because in relation to books, but I think you're right. People think, oh, you can get anything now online, but actually there's a lot of stuff that came out before 2010 in particular that you just cannot find.
I'll talk about that later, yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, well, my fourth one is the Pearl Fishers.
Nice.
Pearl Fishers, and I've gone for Sky Meadows, but I could have pretty much chosen any Pearl Fishers album. And the Pearl Fishers, for those that don't know, it's basically David Scott and whoever he works with. I hope I'm not, being unfair when I say that, but that's certainly how I read them as a band. And David Scott, for me, he is just a classic pop writer, an arranger, kind of in the same vein as Brian Wilson, McCartney, or even Burt Bacharach. And I'm not saying that lightly. I genuinely believe that. That's his kind of, it's probably his influences, but he absolutely makes it his own. Beautiful pop songs, incredible strings, works with so many people, has an incredible knowledge of pop music as well, Scottish music and much wider. I always think if David Scott's name is on a record or something to do with the record, it's a real stamp of quality. And you should check out all of the Pearl Fishers records because they're just gorgeous. Okay, number 5, Andy, for me.
Number 5 for me. I maybe missed one, Ali, but anyway, My Modelling Career by Camera Obscura.
We are going to have a doubler, but we're
going to have a doubler, are we? Oh dear.
But that's okay. That's okay. So on you go.
I mean, purely because I enjoy the record so much, and there's one song in particular which I just fell in love with, which is "Honey in the Sun," and I heard that. Must have heard it on YouTube or something like that, and just thought this. I don't know the band terribly well, but the voice of Tracy Ann Campbell is just perfect for me. It's just this beautiful, but you can recognise it straight away. As soon as they say the rule of a record is 5 seconds, and you go, "Well, that's got to be them." And there's something about her voice. You just think, "Oh gosh, that's beautiful."
I think she's an incredible singer, a real kind of heartbreaking voice. That melancholy to it that you can't put on. It just kind of, it's a natural thing. It's gorgeous.
Absolutely. So that one for me, I got into it through that song, "Honey in the Sun," and then I've listened to it subsequently, and I obviously got into the rest of the record. But that one just it was just at the time hit me like.
Well, I'll mention it again later on, but I might talk about Camera Obscura in more detail.
Well, you'll maybe have more to say about it. Yeah.
So my number 5, is that right? We're on to number 5?
I think I've missed a 5 out, but yeah, go.
Okay, so Pearl Fishers that I just spoke about, their music's released on Marina Records, which is an incredible story, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But the next one was also released on Marina Records, and it is James Kirk's "You Can Make It If You Boogie." Right. Now, just to give you an idea of who is on this album, it gives you an idea of its overall quality and who was involved. You've got, that's terrible. I can't read that. I'm going to have to put the light on a bit. That's.
I told you you'd go blind, Ali.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's got Norman Blake, Kevin McDermott, and some guy called David Scott, as I knew it would.
Right, I see.
So it's James Kirk, for those that don't know, was in Orange Juice. He was one of the original members of Orange Juice. This is a stunning collection of songs, and I have to say, as much as I love Edwyn Collins and Malcolm Ross's records, this is my favourite solo record by an ex-member of Orange Juice, without a doubt. And it's also, I think, the one which kind of captures what made Orange Juice great, kind of better than any others. Yeah, fantastic pop songs, a bit of jangle pop, more expansive, sense of humour. James Kirk had it all. I wish he would make more records, because You Can Make It If You Boogie is an absolute cracker. And yeah, just to talk a little bit more about Marina Records, I don't know if you're that aware of them, Andy, but most of the stuff I bought, not most of the stuff, but a lot of the stuff I bought in the 90s and the noughties that was coming out, Scottish music, a lot of it came out on Marina Records. And they're a German record label that seemed to just fall in love with a lot of the Scottish music of the time. And they released music by the likes of the Bathers, Paul Quinn, Cowboy Mouth, Joseph Haye, Malcolm Ross, the Pearlfishers, as I mentioned, Goldfish, Jazzateers, all these amazing bands that were given releases on this German record label. And last year, I think, or was it the year before, they had an anniversary showcase as part of Celtic Connections called Goosebumps. There was an album that came out with it. And they had this fantastic night where all these different musicians that were involved with Marina, and I think the guys who ran Marina were in the audience. And it was just fabulous to see. You know, they had like one big, a bit like the Starless project, they had one amazing backing band, of which David was front and centre, and then different singers coming on to do their songs, you know. It was a great night, and it's worth Googling Marina Records, going to their website, which is quite an old-fashioned website, certainly the last time I was there, and just going through all the releases and seeing all this amazing Scottish music. As you say, some that we can't get anymore. So my fifth choice was James Kirk and You Can Make It If You Boogie. Okay, into the second half of the hour. Number 6 for you, Andy.
Blimey, right. I'm going to do. There's an album by another favourite of mine, Robin Williamson. We've covered him before.
We have, yeah.
But in the naughties, as we're going to call them, ECM Records picked up on him as some sort of Scottish sort of national treasure type thing, which he is, you know.
Yep.
But ECM who tend to record jazz, I think, or,
right.
But they're immaculately recorded records. So they picked up on Robin Williamson, and he did an album called Seed at Zero. And what he did was went through his back catalogue and reworked some of the songs for just him, acoustic guitar. He plays a bass drum with his foot, and it's very, very sparse instrumentally, but it's absolutely stonking. And because he's got 40 years under his belt, at least at this point he'd had 40 years under his belt of touring, playing these songs. This was a chance to play these immaculate songs recorded brilliantly on the ECM label, and it was quite unusual at the time, because it was all kind of Jan Garbrecht and all that kind of stuff that was coming out on that label, as far as I was aware. And this was astonishing, because it's just crystal clear recording of him doing his thing. Some of the songs.
Maybe another example of this kind of increasingly a crossover between different styles of music. People not going, oh, this is what I like. Saying, oh well, I can. It just happens so much these days. I think that people aren't limited by influences maybe like they were previously. Maybe it's because so much music is available now. But I
think also when it's authentic, when it's unabashedly, if that's a word, authentic, it comes across. Like his music, or some of the jazz they record or something like that. It's it's not made up. You know, it's what they do anyway. They're going to be doing it. They've done it for 40 years. They've done it for however long. Let's just get some microphones in front of them and record it, and that's what ECM do. And it's astonishing recording if you can get. Well, I've got a copy of it, Alan, which I can give you, but it's a fantastic record.
Six in my head. Are they still going?
Was that? I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
No, I think someone got in touch with me recently to say, "Oh, look, this stuff's coming out on ECM."
Oh, it's astonishing. It's always just absolutely crystalline quality. Yeah. I don't know how they do it, whether they've got some a bit like Lynn Electronics or something, whether they have a place where you go and do your
I think it was a writer who had got in touch about his book, but said also, "Oh, listen, you might be interested in this," and I'm sure he sent me a link. I must check that out. Dig it out.
But anyway, that's a fantastic album. He's done 2 with them, as far as I know now, and it's all back catalogue, which has been reworked.
Okay.
So what's your number 6?
Is Milo.
Oh yeah.
And Destroy Rock and Roll. Now, I was no longer kind of going to clubs in the noughties, but I still enjoyed and still do enjoy great dance music, and that's certainly a great dance album, which is quite a rare thing, you know, to get a full album of tracks like that. Milo is originally from Skye, but this album is made for America. You know, it's got samples from Miami Sound Machine. It's got real kind of sunny feel to it. My favourite track, In My Arms, I just adore that. Is sampling Waiting for a Star to Fall, which is another great pop song. Clearly had been listening to amazing music and had used it to make his own. It's a record that I still play a few of the tracks. I don't really play the thing as a whole anymore. I might do that now that we're talking about it. But yeah, In My Arms and the title track, Destroy Rock and Roll, which is the one where he has a sample of a guy talking about the different musicians who are the devil's work. It's an amazing track to hear. It's just this guy going, Michael Jackson, David Bowie, Van Halen, Pat Benatar, with this beat underneath it. It's a really good song. And it's a really good record. This was one that we played a lot, you know, whether we were working, whether we were ready going out, or whatever it was. Just Milo's Destroy Rock and Roll was a bit of a decade-defining release, I would suggest. Okay, number 7. I'm only in 2004 and we're up to number 7. So that's what I mean. Everything at the start of the year. I think I was listening to stuff less and less as the decade went on.
Number 7. Okay, well, I'm going to go with, oh gosh, where is it now? Yeah, it's another Primal Scream record, Ali. It's Evil Heat, which came out in the same decade. And astonishing.
Now, I have to say, again, probably because I was kind of, obsessed with other things, I kind of stopped listening to Primal Scream that much. And so Evil Heat kind of passed me by.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know how I was buying those records out of, we talk about bands that were kind of almost faithful to, you'll buy the record anyway, which is, Primal Scream's one of my bands. I'll buy the record anyway and listen to it. And Evil Heat, I couldn't get it for a while. Because it was just too, but it was that, again, following on from Exterminator, I think that we're trying to shake off the sort of mainstream fans almost, you know, we want to get back to what we're actually about here, and tracks like Autobahn 66, which is absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, that is a great track. That is a great track.
Yeah, and Deep Hit Morning, Deep Hit Off Morning. Fantastic tracks. But I mean, with me, you know, initially with Primal Scream, I got into the sound of what they did, but then it was just always interesting to hear what they're going to do next, because they never ever do. I'm repeating myself, I'm aware, but it's because they never ever do the same thing twice. You know, they just, you never know what album you're going to do.
I wonder if they were trying to shake off commerciality, or they just decided to do what the hell they wanted to do, whatever they were listening to at the time. I mean, I do think that maybe particularly Bobby Gillespie, that was his thing. He's like, oh no, maybe he gets bored easily, or just he doesn't want to stay in the one place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wants to try different things. So,
but it's almost that punk thing of going, well, we're going to follow where it goes, and whether it's popular or not, we're just going to do it.
Yeah.
So that was my wherever we're at, Ali.
We're at number 7, Andy. So if you're
right.
worrying that you're not going to count up to 10.
No, I just think I've missed one out. But we'll keep going.
Okay, so next is a bit of a classic for me, and it's the Trash Can Sinatras.
Nice.
Weightlifted. Now, Trash Can Sinatras were going, I think they formed in the mid-80s back then. Certainly the first album of theirs I remember was Cake in 1990, which I do love. And in fact, if we were doing the 90s again, I might well have stuck it in there. But for me, this is their masterpiece, I think, Weightlifting. Say came out 2004. These are, again, people that just write great songs, and whether they're upbeat or whether they're mellow, they're always kind of thoughtful and poignant at their heart. You know, there's always a point to it. They don't just throw these things away lightly. Recently on the, if I can do a little plug here, recently on the Scots Whay Hae radio show on Cam Glen last week, I had them as the Artist of the Week. And it was really difficult to pick tracks because there's just so many great tracks to choose from. And it's the reason I played them and was that they've got a new track out now, The Closer You Move Away From Me. So they're still making music, still making great music, but they'll go somewhere, I think, to beat Weightlifting, which, I mean, from the start track, Welcome Back, which a fantastic opening to a record, you know, just boom, they're right in there, to the real heartbreaking melodies and lyrics of Weightlifting, the title track. It's if you've never listened to the Trash Can Sinatras, this is a great place to start. Right, number 8, Andy, we're getting close to the end of this madness.
Okay, I've got Monica Queen, The Return of the Sacred Heart. And this was an album I found in, I think it was One Up Records in Aberdeen.
Great record shop.
Sadly no more, I think.
Yeah, I bet.
So what I liked, that was the old-fashioned, they used to write recommendations on the little, you know, yeah, exactly. So I used to go in there, look at the Scottish section, and this was highly recommended, and I bought it and I took it home, and it just blew me away. The production on it, which I believe later on I found was Johnny Smiley's production, and funnily enough, later on found out that he's a huge Daniel Lanois fan, so I could hear what he was doing with the production. He had this absolutely beautiful sound to the record, and again, a kind of religious record.
Yeah, very much so.
But I just found it absolutely beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful things that I've ever heard. And what was so brilliant was when they came up to play at Braidwood Gallery, that they decided to play a couple of those songs because I believe they knew that I liked them, so they played them. And
it was another one of those someone has fixed it for you moments, wasn't it?
It was hard to believe at the time. I maybe didn't tell them enough at the time, but it was an astonishing night, and I just, you know, it was like a competition winner night. You know, it was just like, oh, they're going to play the songs that I like in my place, and it was fabulous. So that record for me is one of my favourite records. Ever. Yeah.
I thought you might pick a Monica record because I was going to pick one as well, and the other one is 10 Sorrowful Mysteries. Yes, it is Mysteries. Sorry.
Right.
Which was came afterwards. I think it came afterwards.
I don't have the date.
Oh, well, never mind. We'll fact check with you later, folks. But
fact checking Santa.
They come up. Both solo albums are incredible. Were you aware of Thrum at all? Did you know?
Not at the time, Ali. It's only subsequently, and fantastic, you know, obviously.
And because I first heard her, as I think I've mentioned previously, on Lazy Line Painter Jane, the Belle and Sebastian EP, my favourite Belle and Sebastian song, where she just kind of makes it her own. And yeah, never been involved in a bad record, her or Johnny Smiley, her partner. Fantastic albums and fantastic singer. And that night was a very special night.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Talking of special, my number 8 is the obligatory Blue Nile album.
Oh, I could have had that one, yeah.
I would have fought you for it. So this was the Blue Nile's 4th and, let's face it, likely final album, High. It came out in 2004 again. 2004, what a year. I don't really need to say too much because I've had a Blue Nile feature in the last 2 of these and now another one. But what I will say is, if you stopped at Hats or Peace at Last and you aren't aware of this, do check it out because it'll be your favourite record. I mean, some of the songs on it are as good as anything they've done elsewhere. I Would Never, High itself, and Stay Close. And I mean, Stay Close would be in any top 10 of my favourite Blue Nile songs. It's an amazing track. And if that's going to be the last track on the last album they ever do, it's a hell of a way to sign off. It's the Blue Nile, everyone. What more can I say? Every home should have one, without a doubt. It's called High. Number 9.
Right, I have actually missed one, but I'm going to go on with my 9, which says 10 here, but I might have to...
2 Las Vegas mentions.
Oh, well, let's count those as 2, shall we? Right, okay. Good. Right.
Actually, it works out okay, because my 10th one is going to be one you've already spoken about, so let's just go.
Right, okay. So my number 10 is, again, a kind of slightly oblique one, Ali. It's a, you know, where we're talking about records that came out in that time period in the noughties, and they were in short, they were short editions, you know. And so when the Big Country website used to produce rarities CDs at the time, and Rarities 1 came out, which is fantastic, which has Restless Natives and all those kind of things on it, and Rarities 2 came out, but they kept coming out with, you know, really going through all not, you know, it's not scraping the barrel as you know, but it was coming out with stuff.
But it was like the bootlegged albums used to get down the bars, was it?
Absolutely, and the candle rigs, yeah, absolutely. So, so I'm going to say Big Country Rarities 3, which came out in 2008, and it was the Peace in Our Time demos, and it was the Peace in Our Time songs. If anyone remembers Peace in Our Time, the Big Country record, it was a very American orientated album. They'd done The Crossing, they'd done Steeltown, Sear, and then they thought, right, let's try and break America. And they got a guy called Peter Wolf in to produce it.
Who was involved with Jay
Giles. Sade as well.
All right.
And so obviously produced Sade, so we get them to do Big Country. Same thing, obviously. And what they did was he would sample a string at a time into the synclavier, and then they would, you know, it was very to me, on Big Country. So they produced this album. It was very crystalline and sampled and so forth. And this Rarities album is the demos before they were chopped up, and they're the REL tapes in the House in the Wood sessions, which amongst the Big Country fans are kind of legendary because it was before the engineer got their hands on them and jigged them up. So it's a really good Rarities to have. And like I say, they only came out you can't buy them now. They come up on eBay now and again. They come out in Discogs now and again, but they're really, I just bought them because I was a fan and I was buying everything at the time. And it's a fantastic album because it has all the demos and everything around the demos that they were making at the time, which was still very good, very, very good stuff.
And now they're your pension. Is that what you're saying?
Could be. Although I'm not very,
I mean, I've got a wall of CDs over there now. There's a lot of rarities in there, but who knows? Okay, well, my ninth, and it's another person which I could have picked pretty much anything of theirs, and it is Mr. James Yorkston.
I've got that one, yeah.
And this is when the Hae rolls in, which is a great.
Yeah.
As I say, could have picked loads of his stuff. James was one of the founder members of the Fence Collective, which we could have spoken a little bit more about because they had King Creosote and Katie Tunstall and HMS Jennifer and the Beta Band were all kind of that little East Nuker Fife became like a hotbed of great music for a long time. Still is, but for a period with Fence, it was amazing. Pictish Trail as well, being another one. But James Yorkston, for me, is one of the most impressive and eclectic musicians we have. I mean, he makes music with John Thorne and Suhail Yusuf Khan as Yorkston, Thorne and Khan.
I love that. I've heard that and it's just amazing.
It's amazing. It's such a fusion of different styles, folk, jazz and Indian classical music, sitar music. I've seen it live. It's amazing live. And also he's played with his newest record is The Route to the Harmonium, which came out last year. And it's one of my favourite albums of last year. But he always makes favourite albums of the year because he just writes great songs. I picked When the Hae Rolls In because I had to pick one. Could have picked pretty much any from loads from that decade. And if you don't know James Yorkston, wow, you've got an amazing amount of great music awaiting you. And you should also check out his novel, Three Craws, if you can find it. You might not be able to find it, but it's a cracking read. I reviewed it for Scots Whay Hae ages ago, and I really, really rate it. So, you don't have a 10th?
If I was going to put in a 10th, it'd be something by Ali Roberts, sorry.
Right, okay. So anything by Ali Roberts from that.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. Well, of course, it's no great surprise what my 10th is. It's My Modelling Career by Camera Obscura. But again, pretty much could have picked any Camera Obscura. I'm a big fan of theirs, going right back to the beginning. I think if I was going to not pick this one, I'd pick another off the top of my head. Let's Get Out of This Country, which was the one before it. Might have gone for that, which has got Hey Lloyd, Are You Ready to Be Heartbroken?
I love that, yeah.
But with this, I think even more than the production, I mean, some people really love the kind of DIY ethos of the very early records, and I do as well, but I love them, all their records. And I think, as you say, Tracy Ann's vocals run through it, but also the style of the songs, the kind of heartfelt nature of the songs runs through all the records.
There's quite an ache to all the songs. They're quite achy, and
And actually, there's a track on this called James, which is perhaps my favourite Camera Obscura track. I just absolutely adore it. So we basically said to you, if you can only pick one record out of these 20, you should definitely try Camera Obscura and My Modelling Career because it's superb. Just quickly, I almost went for the Starlets album, which is a cracking record, or also the Pastels.
That's a great album, that one. That's a great.
Yeah,
I forgot about that. Yes, I have that. Yeah, it's great. Fantastic album.
It's a David Mackenzie film, really weird David Mackenzie film, which is worth checking out, and a fantastic soundtrack to it by the Pastels.
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Andy, that, as they say, is that. If we do another one of these, we'll be on to the teens.
Wow.
The last 10 years. And the return of vinyl as well, I was thinking, because we started out looking at vinyl in the 80s. And I think by the time we ended the next one, that there'll be certainly some nice albums to show you.
Definitely. Yeah.
And thanks again for doing this, my friend.
Okie dokie.
And we'll be back soon before we speak to Andy again with someone completely different. Cheers.